All right, so here we go. We are ready to rock. It is week 9, which is crazy to say out loud, but it is what it is. I know how that fantasy season, it takes forever to get here, and then once it's here, it's like just bam. It's so fast. Feels like just the worst thing ever, but I love it. Anyways, it's the crippling curse that is fantasy football. On my left, we got my man Jeff. Jeff, how we doing this morning?
Hey, doing well, brother. Always great to be with you two gentlemen. I know we've had a lot going on, or I've had a lot going on. You guys have a lot going on, so I appreciate everybody tuning in and checking out and answering some questions this morning on a fine Sunday here.
Absolutely. We were telling everybody that your last name is actually Bezos and you were bought by Amazon last night. So you got a lot to live up to after that. And down below, my man Joe. Joe, how we doing this morning?
Ready to rock and roll, man. Playoffs, start looking at those power rankings on your league site, and they're filled up. You're on the second half, back 9 of the fantasy season. And it is interesting, though. Like, a lot of leagues doing a lot of different things these days. Like the NFL adding that extra week. Like previously, you had the 17-week season. It was pretty much always a 13-game fantasy regular season. Every once in a while, you'd see a league with 14. But now, since they've added the week, like, I'm running into leagues that are 13, 14, 15. Like, it's interesting to see the dynamics of how these leagues are governed and commissioned have changed and evolved quite a bit with the extra week. But regardless, you are in the second half of your season. So it's time to understand who is playing, who is not, and to get that cheese.
Yeah, see, I feel like I blinked and it went from week 6 to week 9 all of a sudden, because I'm like, if you're 0-6, we're ready to help you out. Well, now you're going to be like 0-9 if you didn't get to us until today, possibly. And I don't know. We may not be able to pull that off, but we will definitely try. So make sure you're asking your questions in the comments below, and we will be able to crack them down. Speaking of, it looks like we already got a couple sitting in there right now.
Well, and I'll hold on for a second here before we get on. So pardon me if I'm wrong. I'm under the impression this is week 8. Am I wrong?
You are.
I am wrong. Okay.
Hold on. I didn't say that. It is week 8.
Okay.
Why? Okay, so maybe I jumped ahead of ourselves. No. I think maybe it's because the way I look at waiver wires and things like that. So, yeah, at least it's still only week 8, but still, week 8 is still not week 7, which I feel like we got robbed out of somehow in history. Because it feels like it was just week 6. Anyways, here we go. Week 8, we got April Gilbert. Hello, how you doing? Waddle or Eckler, RB2 slot. Also, Tracy Robinson Jr. or McLeod for the flex. Jeff, we'll go ahead and let you lead this one off.
This is a Waddle. I assume he's not talking about Waddle in an RB2 slot. I would have to assume there's maybe a flex or something there. But if we're talking between Waddle or Eckler, I tell you, with Tua come back, and we actually didn't even get into injury updates on this, but I from what I gathered, Tua's back this week, and I think that's the case. He's got something to prove. I'm really high on Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and the whole team today, especially at home versus Arizona. And if we're talking Tracy Robinson Jr. or McLeod, for me, it's Robinson Jr. Almost not even close on that one.
Okay, yeah, no, and I mean, like, so if you break this down, it's like we need somebody in the RB2 slot. I think I'd put the Robinson Jr. in the RB2 slot, and then I'm flexing Waddle, no doubt about it. But yeah, that's a tough one. If Waddle, because Waddle, you're not going to be able to slot in the running back too. Although that would be cool, because I'm with you, Jeff. I think that that team has a huge game today. What do you say, Joe?
I'm just excited that Miami's got their guy back, so you could consider playing Waddle now and Tyreek Hill and everything else. But I think you got to play Robinson Jr., no doubt about it. And then I don't fully I'm lost on exactly what I'm supposed to say positionally for this one. For the whole 3 minutes, for some reason, my head has not been able to read this question appropriately, which is 100% on me.
Waddle and Eckler in the RB2 spot makes it tricky.
So I'll use my polished experience and just completely go in a completely different direction, because I don't know how to answer it, and talk about how excited, and we talked about this last night, Tyreek Hill being 7,000 on DraftKings, and Mikey, you were taking advantage of Waddle with his price to finally have Tua back under center, even the running backs too. Like, it's just a good day. The NFL is better when those guys are on the field and Tua's throwing the ball. So I'm happy to see it. Sorry, April. There was no answer to that question.
Yep. So hopefully we're going to just go with Waddle and
We'll do it live.
The guy I'm not playing in that mix right there is Tyrone Tracy Jr. With Devin Singletary back for sure. If we got to pick just one guy, we're sitting right there. Kevin Turner was passionate, man. And actually, you know what? Kevin Turner, he says, what's going on, fellas? He says 12-man half PPR flex, Pearsall, Demario Douglas, or Sterling Shepard. Joe, we'll let you lead this one off. And then after this, we'll kick into some injuries.
Yeah, and this is where, like, it's not cliche when you talk about, well, we'll get you guys there with injuries. And Tampa Bay, for example, Sterling Shepard, 3 weeks ago, he was on 0.0% of fantasy rosters. All of a sudden now, Sterling Shepard is not only a starting wide receiver, he's a starting wide receiver on, as of right now, the most prolific passing offense in the league. So it's crazy what transpires within just a couple of weeks or a couple of injuries. Baker Mayfield has been that good, and they've got the tight end there, but you're down both wideouts. I'm all for Sterling Shepard today. I'm not saying he's going to go 10 for 202 touchdowns, but why can't he go 6 for 75 and a TD? I see no reason why he can't. So I absolutely like Sterling Shepard there. Purcell, it's a great story and everything. I'm not quite there yet with him. You could make an argument for Douglas. That's a tough matchup against the Jets. It is kind of funny with May because May's had pretty good stats these games, yet you still can't find a wide receiver or target on that Patriot team that feel is totally viable yet. I guess Douglas is the closest you're going to get right now.
Yeah, it seems like he flip-flopped between Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith up there, and not really. I mean, Demario Douglas has had decent games. Jalen Polk has had decent games, right. But to tie on to any one of these guys, I cannot as well. I do like Pearsall. I do think that he's a good rookie. He's dynamic. He's fast, but I'm going to lean Sterling Shepard here. He's a guy that's been known to be able to get it done. I mean, he was in New York forever. Until he kind of hit that injury-ridden part of his career where he'd only go out there for a few plays. So a little caution on Sterling Shepard just because he's known to hit the tent pretty frequently. What do you think here, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. Certainly, I mean, Pearsall, you got so many mouths to feed in San Francisco, and they're getting healthier by the day, seemingly. And Purdy, I tell you, man, Purdy has come back to earth since end of last year, the start of this year. He hasn't looked all that great, so I don't know if I necessarily like Pearsall mixed in with all that. And then Demario Douglas, the Jets have a solid secondary, man. So going up against the Patriots, I don't see the Patriots doing a whole hell of a lot. And then Shepard, because injuries, I just think that's a great option. He'd probably get a decent amount of targets. I also like Rashad White this week, but at home against Atlanta is a better matchup than the other two. Maybe not necessarily Pearsall, but Pearsall's way down in the depth chart, whereas Sterling Shepard, you might be looking at the 1 or 2 slot there right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. With Sterling Shepard there, like I said, I mean, it's going to be tough with having to go from the dynamic of Godwin and Mike Evans because Sterling Shepard is not even 50% of one of those guys. But he should still see just as a volume play alone. If Deebo Samuels was out again this week, Pearsall would definitely be my guy. And again, I can't lean on Demario Douglas. I don't think any one of us can. It's just kind of a scary proposition to have to depend on a Patriot. Real quick, we'll go ahead and go with this one there because it's our man. It's our man, Trans-Siberian. What is happening over there in the Ukraine? I love it that you're here. I'm glad to hear you there. It's seeming like it's getting pretty crazy over there yet again. He says, don't let Lamar be in my quarterback cloud your judgment. He needs one. JSN, Shakir, Bateman, half PPR, hashtag Jeff is never wrong. So, Jeff, since you're never wrong, we're going to go ahead and let you lead this one off. I don't know what you are sending to the Ukraine. Are you the one that's sending the $1 billion checks? Is that you, Jeff? Because I keep reading about all these people sending
for the fighter jets. I don't know.
All what I'm doing is hoping that Trans-Siberian at least gets a couple bucks out of that, maybe a Dr. Pepper or two or something. But of course, I'm the one that's always wrong. You're the one that never is wrong. So we're going to go ahead and let you lead this one off, buddy.
I mean, what has been happening is I've been shipping them cases of Mountain Dew on the DL. So we've been at real close. I have to, get it to the border. Somebody meets me at the border. So it's a whole big thing to get Mountain Dew over there. So apparently he's got short-term memory. Love you, brother. And I so much appreciate the encouragement there, but I guess he forgot about Gabe Davis last year. Really let him down on that one. So, but Gabe Davis aside, my friend, if we're looking at one of those three, I guess I'd lean on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Not that Shakir and Bateman aren't decent options, but I'd say so. Seattle is home against Buffalo. I just think JSN is at that kind of wide receiver 2 or kind of 2.5 with Lockett. So not that the other guys are bad options, but for me, Jackson Smith and Jigba has more of a chance to get the targets than the other two.
Yeah, see, for me, the answer here is almost clearly Bateman. But then when you look at DK Metcalf going out today, or likely going to be out today, it makes me really want to lean harder on JSN as well right here, just because, again, I mean, we're looking at volume opportunity. Lockett's never really been premier as a 1. He's always been premier as a 2. He's had 1-style games, absolutely, but usually those 1-style games are when DK Metcalf is on the field. So I'm thinking that right here, I'm going to be leaning JSN. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm excited for JSN today with no Metcalf. He has had a couple of big games with everybody playing. I would expect, and against Buffalo, they should need to throw the ball a bit. So I'm excited to see what he does there as the pure number 1A, whatever you want to call him today. And but I will real quick though, honorable mention. You got like watching Lamar to Bateman on Monday night or whenever that was. That was kind of jarring. Like if that's a legit thing, that would be something. It was nice to see them connect on a couple of deep balls.
See, and I mean, I feel like we've just seen that so many times before, where he hits Bateman on these big games. Bateman's like, I'm just kind of like most of those other guys, like your Gabe Davises that have your 40-point games. And then we talk about how good he was last season because he has a great stat line at the end of the year without realizing that stat line happened in 4 games. And so as long as you played him on those 4 games, great. But those players tend to be on your bench when they go off because they go not off, the opposite of off for 4 straight weeks. And then you just can't depend on him, can't lean on him. And then, and also I'd like to say, Trans-Siberian, I swear to God, you drop these things while I'm talking. So I break almost every single time because like during that, he says, except for Davis and Moss, which is awesome.
I like that. Get the except for hashtag trending there, Trans-Siberian, and get rolling on that one, brother. I like that. So Jeff's never wrong. And then hashtag except for.
Except for, and then we'll make a list off of that. And hope you're being safe over there, man. Like I said, I keep hearing things about things escalating over there, and that was just I was just goofing around about money. I don't care about any of that stuff. You know that. I wish we could get everything just stopped and settled, and everybody could go shake hands, smoke joints, do whatever you got to do to make that world turn. We got Boss Man. He said, "What's up, boys? What's happening, Boss Man? It is good to see you again, my dude." He says, "Who to start? Pick 2 wide receivers from this list: DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins, Deebo Samuel, Devonta Smith." Man, did you let anybody else draft, Boss Man? My God. Jeff, go ahead and lead this. Or actually, Joe, lead this one off. Jeff, you got to, since you were always right on the last one.
This is a nice roster now. We got some depth here. I think you got to go DJ Moore now. I think, week 2, week 3, you might have wavered a little bit. I don't think you can waver there anymore. That other one is tough. I guess we'll wait on Hopkins. We're going to watch to see what he does week 1 with the Chiefs here. But the rest of those guys, man, whew. I mean, if Jaden Daniels plays, it feels like you can't go wrong. Like I feel like Devonta Smith and McLaurin are right for kind of like the same type stat line. Deebo, do we have a full on? Do we know for sure if Deebo's playing tonight?
Yes,
he is. And we know there's no Ayuk. Kittle is playing. Man, this is really, really hard on the second one. I'm going DJ Moore. And I mean, it's kind of as close to a must win as you can have right now. I guess I will go Debo as long as it seems like he's good to get a full workload. I'd go DJ Moore and Debo, but you could certainly talk me out of Debo.
Yeah, Debo was out last week with pneumonia. It wasn't like a big injury or anything like that. Devontae Smith, to me, has been very hit or miss, and it's more miss than hit. DeAndre Hopkins, I got to see it. I'm very excited to see him as a Chief, but I got to see it. And then DJ Moore I don't know, man. I can't sit DJ Moore. To me, DJ Moore is a smash. I'm starting him. And now who else am I going to start? Jaden Daniels is coming out there with a rib injury, but Jaden Daniels is going to be out there. Honest to God, he looked like he was going to play last week if he needed to. But they just pounded it so fast and just didn't need him to come back. I think he'll be fine. So for me, it's the first two. I think it's DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin. What do you say, Jeff?
Man, I'm really going to throw a wrench in the works here then. So I think Joe mentioned it. We can kind of put aside Hopkins to start with. So leaves us with the four there. And I'm going with Devontae Smith, number one, just because outside of Cleveland, we've seen teams time and time again put up points and yardage against Cincinnati at a record level. So now luckily for Cincinnati, they can score on a record level, but you can really get some yardage. You can really get some points on Cincinnati. So for me, I really like Devonta Smith, even though, again, A.J. Brown's their number one, but Devonta Smith is still going to get his targets and his share of the reception. So leads us to DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin. I'd have to lean DJ Moore. Seems like the Bears are getting hot at the right time, or at least Caleb Williams has found his stride versus the first couple of weeks where they kind of stumbled a little bit. And then Terry McLaurin is interesting because Washington is at home. Chicago does have kind of a tough defense. We don't know how Daniels is going to do. If he was 100% healthy in Washington, I might lean Terry McLaurin, but I'd have to say Devontae Smith and DJ Moore for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mention Debo because it was kind of more. It comes down to DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin. I didn't mention Debo just because of all the weapons in San Francisco and that Purdy's been struggling recently. Sorry.
The X factor that is Jaden Daniels from a fantasy perspective today, it's just so huge. Like, you have decisions now. Okay, do I play Daniels over whatever said quarterback? Then how do you feel about McLaurin? Because if Daniels is healthy, McLaurin is proven to be pretty much a number, 1.5 fantasy wideout. But if he's not 100%, then McLaurin isn't. It changes the running game. It's just, and it's like, what do you do? It's, you just gotta pretty much. It's a toss up, and it's like, do you stay away from him? Do you just let it all ride? He takes a hit to the ribs on his first rush of the game, you're screwed. But then if he sits on your bench with 30, you hate yourself too. It's fun.
Right. Yep. That's a tough one right there because he is, to me, if you start looking at primo guys, and it's funny seeing DeAndre Hopkins get in the mix. I got a team that I have to roll DeAndre Hopkins in today and Kareem Hunt. And the more and more I keep getting into this, like I have Andy Dalton on the bench right now, but that was getting really close to looking like a lineup I had like 30 years ago. DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, Andy Dalton. I'm like, man, is there anybody relevant still playing football? Or are we getting everybody out of retirement here? What's going on? He's got another question here. He says, other team flex, pick one: Josh Jacobs, Stephon Diggs, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, Terry McLaurin, or James Cook. Man, I'm telling you, I love this guy's draft. What do you say here, Jeff?
Well, and also Mike too. Didn't I see you're starting Algie Crumpler at tight end? I think he's on your team, right? So
that's a good one.
But I digress. I'll tell you, these are great options. I'd love to see the other teams in this league and what their rosters look like.
Got to be an 8-team league, right?
Holy smokes!
This is flex too. My Lord, who we playing over? Guys,
apparently nobody else is paying attention. So, or I don't know, maybe everybody else in the league is involved in a Diddy thing, but we'll stay away from that. In any case, so right off the bat, just for opportunity standpoint, I'm gonna go with the running backs. We're looking at Jacobs, Hubbard, Connor, and Cook. So I really like, even though Jacobs has kind of let me down a little bit from a touchdown standpoint, I think he'll start to get a stride and opportunity wise. I think Jacobs, you can't sit him. If we're talking Hubbard, Connor, or Cook, I'm staying away from Hubbard because honestly, Denver's defense is actually pretty solid, and we bagged on them at the start of the year, Mike. But I'll tell you, the Denver Broncos are looking halfway decent lately. Arizona with James Conner, I think they're going to be thrown. I think Miami's going to put up some points. So I don't know if Conner's necessarily going to be all that relevant. And then you got James Cook. I think that's a really good option in Buffalo, or excuse me, at Buffalo, but they're in Seattle. So of those four, I mean, I would take Jacobs and Cook, but if I have to pick between the two, I'll go Jacobs on a slim margin there.
That's close for me too. What do you say here, Joe?
I don't know, man. This is really hard. It's hard to not play James Cook these days, it feels like to me. So I think I got to go James Cook. And real quick, just because I know T. Higgins is officially out. So no T. Higgins today for Cincy.
Yep. Also, Mason Rudolph will be starting for Tennessee, not Will Levis. And I'm with you. I think it's James Cook here. I think it's by a very thin margin over Josh Jacobs and Stephon Diggs. I really like Stephon Diggs without Nico Collins over there, but he just hasn't been getting the volume that these running backs have been getting. So Josh Jacobs, James Cook are the two guys that I'm leaning on here as well. And then James Cook by a solid margin. And also, hell yeah, go Denver. We love it, man. Denver's been looking really good. And a little more clarification on this. I made sure to text her. She said, I'm not awake today. Says Waddle or McLeod, then flex Exler, Robinson, or Tracy. So instead of the wide running back two, we got the wide receiver two, Waddle or McLeod. I think all three of us are going to say Waddle on that fairly easily. Okay, are we flexing anybody over Robinson Jr. here? No,
not me.
Okay. Excellent. And Boss Man says, thanks, guys. Of course, man, we've always got your back, and we always appreciate you showing up, man. And hopefully we've always been helping you out, and because you always help us out just by being here. So definitely appreciate you. Getting into a couple of the other questions here. We got flex. Do we got Olave or Chuba? What are you doing here, Jeff?
Wow, I tell you, I don't like these options at all. So Olave, I mean, New Orleans, Derek Carr is still out over there, I believe, right? So you're looking at Spencer Trencer, Rattles, whatever, who the hell his name is. So, New Orleans is on a downfall like I've never seen. So they started off looking like the best team in the league for the first two games, and then all of a sudden it just fell off the face of the earth. And Carolina's up against Denver, who I just praised having a great defense. But if I have to pick between the two, the running back against a tough defense or Olave without his number one without his quarterback there. So I'd have to lean Chuba Hubbard, but I don't like either of those options, period.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I feel like I'm going to have to go volume here. I'm going to lean volume, and it's going to be Chuba. I don't mind Spencer Rattler, and having one more week with Olave is probably going to be a little bit more impactful. But I still have to lean. Ty goes to the run. What do you think here, Joe?
It's Chuba's stat line is really funny. Like the first 2 weeks, he had 1-11, but so his last 5 weeks on DraftKings, anyways, 31, 25, 18, 15, 11. So he had a couple of bangers, but yeah, they're going in the wrong direction now. It's a tough matchup. Olave, though, has got no quarterback either. So, I mean, I think I would stick with the running back and go Chuba here. But I'd be alarmed by that. Denver defense has been very legit this year.
Yeah, and that's actually been keeping them in games. Bo Nix everybody keeps saying, oh, they're looking good. They've been looking like garbage on offense. They actually kind of started putting together a running game last week for the first time ever, like this whole season, right?
Yeah.
Like for 5 weeks, you had Ostier and freaking McLaughlin and Javonte. None of them were looking good. They were taking a hot hand approach with 3 piles of garbage. They actually looked really good last week, but they have not picked it up. Like Cortland Sutton's been irrelevant. Devon Vele has been, he's getting targets, right? But he's not been doing anything with the football either. So it's just that defense, man. That defense has really been everything for that team.
Yet they're 4-3, right?
Yeah.
They're 4-3.
Yeah,
Yes.
4-3. I would have bet good money. Like I read an article that they were going to finish 11-5, and I thought that was a bunch of garbage. And now it's actually looking like that could very well be a possibility. But you got to win every game besides the two you face the Chiefs, because Chiefs have their number for sure. And they can outpace them. Although, like I said, in Denver, if they have a 0 on the end of their record still, if the Chiefs do, forget about it. We ain't gonna let them leave Denver with that circle in there. The circle will get the square for sure.
With that, gentlemen, I'm gonna have to bow. I got a few things rolling today. We got. Well, I'm not gonna say anymore. Just I'll tell you guys about it after today. But I appreciate everybody checking in, and we'll catch you guys this week. Thanks so much.
We all understand that Bezos life, my man. Like you gotta go make all the shady backroom deals you have to, my man, and make sure you save some for us when it's all said and done.
You got it, man. My flight to get that Mountain Dew to Trans-Siberian leaves in about 10 minutes, so I'll be there. I'll see you, boys.
There you go. Well, take care. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us this morning.
I'll tell you what, when you talk about just games in general, like that San Francisco-Dallas game tonight, whoever loses that game, they're as close to screwed as possible. You know, we're talking about Denver is going to be probably 5-3 after today because they're home against Carolina. And then you'll have either the Cowboys or the 49ers sitting at like 2-6 and pretty much be done.
Right. Yeah, no, Trans-Siberian says no Wiggins today. Where's the injury update? He dropped it right when it dropped, my man. Yeah. I still don't have
he said Wiggins
on my phone for Higgins yet, but you already called that out that he is definitely out today. It's crazy because I'm in so many deep dynasty leagues. Like I've got one notification on my phone right now that says Israel Abanikanda status has changed from healthy to out. So he is a healthy scratch today. If anybody was wondering about Israel Abanikanda, that's why we let Joe handle all the injury reports and everything like that. Because you don't want mine, man. That I get the crazy ones. We got running back Swift or Mason, and I'll go ahead and lead this one off right here. For me, it's going to be Swift. Mason's been great, but he just hasn't been playing as good as Swift has. Chicago's been putting it together the past 3 weeks, as far as I'm concerned. I think, and I think they only get better with a little bit of time, and their matchups do get a little bit easier and easier as you go down the way. I do love Mason's opportunity here, but again, Deebo Samuel's coming back. To me, hurts a little bit of that running game. I think they're going to have to pass the ball a little bit more to keep up in this one. What do you think right here, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, Swift, I love Swift, and I love that he's gone 20+ 3 straight weeks. He can always be a little scary because he's going to throw up a clunker sooner rather than later because that's what he does. But with the fact that he's catching the ball too, I like Swift today. Mason, I do like because they're playing the Cowboys, who is that's a shitty rushing defense. No Parsons again either. I do like Mason this week also, but it's hard to resist the fact that Swift's going to catch the ball too, and Mason doesn't really do too much of that.
Right. Yeah. Nope. So for me, I'm going to have to lean that way as well, just because I love DeAndre Swift. You guys know how much I've loved DeAndre Swift for years. He's actually looking like the guy I've wanted him to be finally for the first time in a long time right there. We got our man Kevin Turner saying, thanks, guys. He's got one more question for the other league. Do we start Mahomes or Purdy? It's crazy how crappy Mahomes has been for fantasy this year, in my opinion. But what do you think here, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go Purdy. I mean, the Chiefs are playing the Raiders. The Raiders are starting Gardner Minshew, which you know what? Some weeks that's going to mean 10 points. Some weeks it's going to mean 24. He can move the ball. That being said, and the fact that they gave Hunt the ball 25 times plus last week, I don't think Mahomes has to do a lot. And I don't think they're going to ask him to do anything they don't need him to do. So, I think it's going to be a lot of 15-point fantasy games for him. Maybe it's 18, 19. But, Purdy, especially if Dallas comes out, maybe scores a couple times early, Purdy's going to be airing it out today. As much as I do believe they're going to run the ball, I don't want to talk out of both sides, right? Mason, they're going to run the ball. That Cowboy rush defense sucks. At the same time, I expect the Cowboys to be able to throw up some points. I would expect Purdy to also have to throw the ball to win, where Mahomes doesn't have to throw the ball to win that game today. So I will go with Purdy.
And I actually agree with that. Purdy has been not that well either this year, but Mahomes, like I said last night, the guy, I was arguing with the guy on Twitter yesterday because we were talking about draft capital on Patrick Mahomes and how it hasn't had the return, for what you paid for him. And the guy said he's the best quarterback in the league. And I said, nobody's arguing that. He's by far the best quarterback in the league. but not for fantasy, right? Like for fantasy, he has been like the quarterback number 2 more weeks than he's been the quarterback 1 for the first time in a long time. Although this actually has been about a 2 or 3 year trend going, because that team is so good that they don't have to do a lot to win. Now, if you got him firing, if you have a big game from Patrick Mahomes, that means that they had a really big opponent. You know, like I said, the Bills to me are a team that can really put up the kind of numbers Kansas City can put on against you, you know. I mean, so I don't think that matchup is there today. I think it's Purdy for sure for me.
I don't understand why people have a hard time with this, because you saw it with Tom Brady. You even saw it with Peyton Manning in the Denver years. Manning was not lighting it up fantasy-wise his last couple of years.
Yeah, especially that final year. Yeah. Like, no, the final year he was almost well, I mean, he didn't even play for like 11 weeks because of plantar fasciitis, which is a completely made-up disease, by the way, everybody. I'm just kidding. I know a few people that have had it, and it really, really sucks. But that is at the time what I believed. I thought that he had plantar fasciitis because he sucked. You know, I think he was going for another ring, and I think he was pulling the trigger on a lot of the offense, which is really all you need Peyton Manning there for. I mean, the one thing you lose with having him on the sideline is the audible. You just don't get an audible the way Peyton Manning can audible, because, my God, he can do it better than anybody. Trans-Siberian says he's manly enough to say Joey looks good in his glasses. Hashtag DFS Jock Doc. I love it. Yes, no. This man's handsome regardless of condition. You know, it's one of the things. It's Beauty and the Beast for damn sure sitting here on the screen. We got a question, Superflex. Minshew or Waddle or Smith and Jigba or Mason? Assuming your answer to the last one was Smith. You assume
what are you, Ron Burgundy?
Right.
So yeah, use Mason. It would make more sense to use Mason here. So Superflex, Minshew, Waddle, Smith and Jigba, or Mason? How do you bite on that one for a minute?
So for me, I think I'm going to lean Waddle here, but it's actually, I'm going to lean back. It's going to be Mason. It's going to be Jordan Mason. Even over Minshew in my Superflex, I think that Jordan Mason's going to be at least the volume play. Waddle will be a guy that I think can get you those kind of points, but Tyreek Hill is hungry. I think Tyreek Hill is the guy who benefits today. I do think Waddle gets a touchdown, but I think it's going to be something like 4 for maybe 59 and a touchdown, something to that effect, where I think Mason is going to get you probably about 70 yards. So if this is PPR, I think I'm going to be leaning a little bit more on Waddle, but it's going to be close. It's going to be between him and Mason, but I think Ty goes to the run. So
it's amazing in a Superflex how people feel so obligated, I guess I'll say, to start that second quarterback. And this is such a good example of it. Do you compromise and go to Minshew, or do you go with the wide? And a lot of people would go Minshew every time just because it's got to be 2 quarterbacks. And it took me a couple of years in Superflexes to realize you don't necessarily need to do that every week.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's funny because I was undefeated in the Scott Fish Bowl up till a couple of weeks ago, and my drafted quarterbacks were Aiden O'Connell, Tua Tagovailoa, and J.J. McCarthy, because you draft in July in the Scott Fish Bowl, right? And so to me, that looked like a heck of a lineup. Well, week 5, guess what? I didn't have a single solitary quarterback. I was lucky to get Malik Willis off of waivers, and so I was rocking with my quarterback 1 is Malik Willis, and my quarterback 2 was non-existent, so I couldn't have a Superflex 4 weeks in that league. And even just this week, I still have 2. I got Tua back, and I've got Gardner Minshew, and I've got not Mason Crosby, but Jordan Mason. Not Jordan. I've got Jordan Mason as well. Sorry, whoever the guy for the freaking Titans is, I can't remember his name all of a sudden for some reason.
Tony Pollard?
No, not Mason Rudolph. That's the name. Mason Rudolph. And I have Mason Rudolph, and I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to be doing that. So yeah, I think it's going to be Mason here as well.
Speaking real quick, and it's so funny because how much do you really talk Tennessee? So with Hopkins going, like, do we see Calvin Ridley becoming any more relevant there, or their quarterback play is just so shitty?
And you really tell me a time where Calvin Ridley's been impressive outside of a few games too. Everybody wants this guy to be this thing that I just don't think that he is. He's great. He's talented, way good at football. It just doesn't seem like he cares to showcase that week in and week out, but he does show flashes. It's almost like he shows flashes just enough to get that contract and then do enough to kind of stay around and things like that. So
the Albert Hainsworth way.
What's that?
The Albert Hainsworth way, right?
Yep, exactly. Get that contract, get going. April disagrees with Trans-Siberian. She says Mike looks better. So, we're going to have to agree with her too, even though she does have a picture of me in her profile pic. So that might be a little bit biased right there.
I'd be afraid, I by the sounds of my kids upstairs, I'd be afraid to make my wife come down here and interject because she'd probably agree with April at this point.
Right, because he's not here. We got start 2, Swift, Hunt, B. Rob Jr. I'll lead this one off. I feel like Hunt and Swift, Brian Robinson Jr. is this is actually a really, really good problem to have. I don't think you're going to miss out on any one of these guys. Brian Robinson Jr. has competition. The other two don't. It comes down to that for me. What do you think right here?
Yeah, no, well said, and probably, not overthinking it without underthinking it too. You're right. It feels odd to sit him because he's been so consistent as long as he's been healthy. But with Hunt, it's just, it cracks me up how they just bring Hunt in and we're talking 25, 30 touches, he's been on the team for the last 5 years. It's incredible. And you don't want to underreact to that. And especially from a DFS perspective with a guy like Hunt, because he's still not that expensive yet. It's hard not to be obsessed with him right now, fantasy wise.
Right. Yeah, no. And like I said, these guys are, you have a great solid lineup all the way down. And and again, this is going to be coming down to Brian Robinson Jr. or Jaden Daniels playing again. Because if Jaden Daniels is out, I think that almost puts me at least even with Swift, because they'll lean a lot harder on that run game, and Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler both get a feast when that kind of scenario happens. So if you do see him, I might lean him over Swift, but damn it, it's close. Like I said, to me, I don't feel like you're going to be able to miss with this line.
No, but I agree with what you're saying, because if Daniels doesn't play, that increases the likelihood that Robinson gets in the end zone, right? Because I think the fear with Robinson is he goes for the yardage, but then Daniels gets the 6-yard rushing touchdown, not him. So that would be one pro to him not playing, I guess. Oh, you're muted. Oh, no, you weren't muted. Now you're muted. I can't hear.
No, it definitely went mute on me right there. How about now? Are we good? We solid?
Yeah, we good. I got you.
Yeah, no, this dang thing, I tell you, this computer's about ready to blow up. This computer's been ready to blow up since about 1996, though. So I think it's time I upgrade to a Pentium 2, I believe is what you're supposed to do there. Chaser Lions defense this week. I'll go ahead and let you lead this one off right here.
This is a win-win. And I was shocked that I saw both of these defenses on my waiver wires in almost all of my leagues, which was really surprising to me, especially the Chiefs defense, because most people play defense by matchup, but the Chiefs get a lot of fluff matchups with the Vegas and Denver even, and the Chargers obviously in their division. So I was shocked and excited to see both of these defenses available in most of my leagues. I like both of them this week. I think I would err on the side of the Lions specific for this week. If I had to pick one to have long term, I think I would go Chiefs. But the Lions home against Tennessee. Tennessee just traded Hopkins. They don't have their quarterback. It's hard to find a reason why Tennessee would even have any positive energy going into this game. And the Lions at home. Yeah, I think the Lions defense is the way to go today.
I think I'm leaning Lions defense here just because of who they're up against, and not having Aiden Hutchinson does hurt them to a degree for me because, boy, that's a different defense. But they didn't really look like they missed him too awful bad last week. Now, that's probably the most it'd be like Houston doesn't miss JJ Watt anymore either. I mean, like, of course you miss a tank of that magnitude, and of course you're not going to be able to play the same football game as you were otherwise. But I do think that they still look pretty decent without him, I guess would be the better way to say that, because gosh, that was dumb, because they obviously missed the guy, right? Like, you don't get to have a game that you don't miss Aiden Hutchinson when he's that much of a premium on your team. But the Chiefs just, to me, again, that defense doesn't have to do a lot to stifle you, to keep you down. They have a lot of 3-and-outs, but they don't have a ton of turnovers. They don't have a lot of pick sixes, anything like that. Not that Lions are just banging down the door with those either, but I feel like they're going to have more of an opportunity to do that, because you're going to see a lot more of a less of a runaway game, right? Like, this is going to be a runaway pretty quick, I think, Kansas City against Vegas, or kind of like the method that they're like the Floyd Mayweather of football, right? They'll pop you a couple of times, then they'll go wait in the corner of the ring for the rest of the
play for the decision.
Yep. Get to the ring, get to the middle whenever they decided they had you paid up, and then not try to knock you out. Trans-Siberian says, should I be worried about Lamar? Said the game could get ugly by halftime. Cousins is available. Oh, man. I was touting up Cousins last night a ton, because I'm really high on Cousins today. Last time they played, he put up 40 points in some formats, threw for over 500 yards. That defense didn't change any over the past few weeks, although they are playing at home. They might not have to hit the gas as hard. I cannot ever in a million years sit Lamar Jackson, not the way he's playing football right now. What do you say here, Joe?
Yeah, actually, I feel better about Lamar with Jameis Winston playing for Cleveland, if that makes sense. Like, if this game is Lamar versus the Deshaun Watson Cleveland team, Lamar, if Derrick Henry scores the first touchdown or first 2 touchdowns, then Lamar might not have to do freaking a thing. But I actually think Jameis wins. So first of all, you're Baltimore, Cleveland. It's a division game. These teams don't like each other. Then Cleveland does have a quality defense. Jameis Winston, the one thing we know about him, well, we know 2 things about him. He's going to move the ball. He's going to turn the ball over. Both of those things move the needle fantasy-wise. I think that he'll be apt enough to keep that offense, moving the ball to the point where Lamar's going to be motivated to score for at least 3 quarters. Could it be a little bit of a runaway in the 4th? Yeah, but no, I think Lamar's going to get his. I think you're playing Lamar every week.
Yeah, watching how Cleveland's been playing the past few weeks, getting Chubb back, losing Deshaun Watson, which I think is a benefit for that team, not a negligible. I think that we actually do see a little bit of offensive production now. Is it going to be out of Elijah Moore, Judy? It's going to be hard to tell. And Njoku's hanging out right there. So, I mean, we could really see a team that can put some stuff together and keep up in this game. They're not going to win by any stretch of the imagination, although that is the kind of right. Cleveland is always that team.
You know what?
Like how the Raiders always beat the Broncos. The Browns can always beat the Ravens.
And the way when you talk about that combo of Winston and you got Nick Chubb back, like, I don't know, all of a sudden, and Baltimore's great. I know Baltimore's great. I'm not saying anything bad about Baltimore, but it wouldn't shock me today if Cleveland goes out there and makes it a real close game, or even if they pulled it out. And this version of the NFL, it wouldn't shock me at all.
Right. I was watching a meme the other day, and it was a Kansas City Chiefs one, and they said that, like, before the play, pass interference on the defense, and they were playing against Kansas City, and like threw the flag and called pass interference before the play. Patrick Mahomes will be allowed to put the football anywhere he wants to. It's good stuff, but yeah, that's always the haters that go out there, and I can't stress enough, nobody hates Patrick Mahomes more than me, because I have to face that guy twice a year for God knows how long. And my team will probably never, ever, ever beat him. Like, probably never. That will probably, and definitely not in the playoffs. They may be able to pull one down in Denver every now and again, because Denver's a hard place to play football, but never again. Joe, that kind of wraps us up with questions. Do you have anything to add before we go ahead and call this good?
No, because I still got I got a lot of decisions to make still. So, keeping an eye on those injury statuses, and I'd like to get a little more cement wording on Jaden Daniels. I don't feel like that's official yet. So keep your eyes peeled.
I've got a lot of lineups right now with a lot of guys in there that are sitting with big Q's in front of their name that I'm just like, I don't know. Is it time to start them? Is it time to gamble? So, yep, nope, I'm with you. But make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us at Triple Play Fantasy. Get your questions in over there. Get your questions direct. Good luck, all. Thanks for your insights. Dinner time, Trans-Siberian. Like I said, brother, you be safe over there. Stay low, stay down, and stay out of trouble over there. And enjoy your dinner. And thank you guys so much. And we will see you guys next week with DFS Chalk Talk and with Triple Play Fantasy, Joe, Jeff, and myself. We will